When you think of Mario series staples, you probably think of the question mark block, or the super mushroom, or the flagpole, understandably so. There have been a ton of Super Mario games and among the most recognizable images. But Mario also has some very often seen tropes that I don't think people realize are as common as they actually are. And one of those is magic paint. It goes completely under the radar, but this is something Nintendo has relied on for Mario mechanics of all kinds throughout the vast majority of its lifespan at this point. You may not always realize it's the same thing going on, but that ink or paint has some magical properties in the Mario world is undeniable at this point. And I'm not even talking about Mario Paint. Let's take a closer look at the many times this has proven a vital part of Mario's in-game journeys and try to figure out why Nintendo relies on it so often. When I say magic paint, your mind probably wanders towards the events of Mario Sunshine, I would wager, as that game basically entirely revolves around it. But when I then add the little suffix ing, you probably end up thinking of the true first instance of this, Super Mario 64 and its magic paintings. While we can't say for certain how these paintings came to be and how exactly they work, according to a toad inside Peach's castle, they were created by Bowser to create his own world using the Power Stars. This implies that the locations visited via the paintings don't actually exist, and Mario is essentially transported inside the painting, which is surprisingly enough corroborated by Mario spin-offs, or rather the complete lack of Mario spin-offs. Because despite locations such as Bob-omb Battlefield and Cool Cool Mountain being absolutely iconic, they have never reappeared in a Mario spin-off. No Mario tennis match or kart course has ever taken place in one of the levels from Mario 64, which is honestly kinda surprising to think about. The only Mario 64 locations that have reappeared are Peach's Castle, which is obviously very real, Whomp's Fortress as a galaxy far away from the actual Mushroom Kingdom, and Tick Tock Clock, which is less of a painting and more magically entering a physical, actually existing clock of sorts. It's portrayed a bit ambiguous due to using the painting effect, but I don't think it can entirely be considered the same thing, just like say Big Boo's Haunt also is not a painting. Anyway, as such, it can be concluded that the magic paint that the paintings are created from essentially have the ability to transport Mario or other characters, if we're talking about the DS version, inside of the painting, rather than warp them towards an existing location, which is a purpose we would see magic paintings have much later in the series, or just magic paint in the literal next 3D Mario game. But before we arrive there, we have some more magic paintings to tackle, because, like I said, Nintendo loved this stuff, especially around this time. Luigi's Mansion follows in Mario 64's footsteps by not focusing too much on the literal paint, but making paintings a core element of the story, arguably even more so than in Mario 64. The entire plot rests on Mario being trapped inside a painting by King Boo, while the major gameplay loop focuses on Luigi capturing the portrait ghosts, a total of 22 spooky entities that have been freed from their painted prisons by King Boo, if Professor Egad is to be believed. Since we're of course dealing with ghosts and their strange powers here, deducing exactly how the portraits work and how they can capture spirits is impossible to say, meaning we might very well not actually be dealing with special paint here at all. But what is especially worth pointing out is the role of Professor Egad in the Mario series' obsession with paint. You see, using a special Egad invention, the Ghost Portrificationizer, Luigi can turn the ghosts back into portraits. And while we don't know exactly how this device works, what makes it incredibly noteworthy is that only a year after Luigi's Mansion, we would receive the next big 3D Mario game, another title that heavily relied on paint, as well as once again connecting Professor Egad to the source of this magic paint. Because while Super Mario Sunshine may technically call it goop, yes, that is the official term, I think it's obvious that a lot of the gravity and the rainbow M's that transport you to levels are created by magic paint, and there's a lot to unpack with this one. First of all, let's quickly illustrate the key difference between Mario 64's magic paintings and Sunshine's rainbow M's. Whereas it's most likely that 64 actually transports you inside the painting, there is no denying that Sunshine's magic paint has warping capabilities. Bianco Hills isn't inside the statue of a Pianta, but it is very much an Adolfino, and the paint simply warps Mario towards it when he makes contact with it. And that paint is courtesy of Bowser Jr.'s magic paintbrush, which was developed and, according to Jr. himself, given to him directly by Professor Egad. It's now 2 inventions developed by EGAD that appear to have some sort of magic affinity with paint. And then I haven't even counted Flood yet, who is also developed by EGAD, and while it doesn't spray paint obviously, it is a necessary component in making the Rainbow M's usable, for example. The paintbrush is definitely the more powerful paint tool, however, also having the capability to essentially create Shadow Mario, creating graffiti that regenerates out of its own volition, and even give life to the goop it creates, with the proto-piranhas that are frequently fought as bosses. The magic paintbrush is an incredibly powerful weapon, I would go as far as to call it that, and this being invented and handed straight to Bowser Jr. by EGAD definitely makes little sense on the surface. When you think about it, if EGAD is dabbling deeper and deeper into magic paint and what it can do, as evident by not just the paintbrush, but also what we see in Luigi's Mansion, the entire series at that, it makes sense that he uses Junior as a test subject. And that is just assuming Junior isn't just lying and has simply stolen the paintbrush. Despite the end of Sunshine showing Junior no longer has possession of it, with Il Piantissimo finding it and presumably using the paintbrush to become Shadow Mario in Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, Bowser Jr. has since Sunshine very frequently been seen with his debut weapon, as well as similar paint-based powers. Just to list off some spin-offs, you have Mario Power Tennis, Mario Hoops 3-on-3, Mario Arcade GP, Mario Super Sluggers, Mario Sports Mix, Bowser Jr.'s Journey, the side mode of Bowser's Inside Story, and Super Smash Bros, where Bowser Jr. has special moves, attacks, items, whatever the game calls it, that see him using the paintbrush in ways that showcase its grand abilities and bring paint back as a mechanic in another Mario game. But there is one thing very noteworthy about the modern appearance of the paintbrush. It is a cold hard fact that EGAD developed it. Junior makes that very clear, and if it wasn't obvious enough, there is also his symbol prominently featured on the brush's handle. But modern depictions of the tool have actually removed this symbol and replaced it with Junior's, interestingly enough. There are a million possible reasons as to how this decision came to be, ranging from EGAD erasure to removing hints of a character that hasn't appeared in a game with the word Mario in the title since Partners in Time, to this actually being a different brush, a Bowser-made reproduction of the EGAD original. Either way, it does mean EGAD is off the hook for the events of Bowser's Fury, which once again makes paint a huge focus of its main storyline. Before that though, we need to quickly acknowledge Odyssey, which, as a nod to 64, brought the magic paintings back, but this time it is undeniable that they warped Mario to a different, very much real location. Keep in mind though that while the paintings may appear similar, they are not the same thing as what was seen in 64, and should not be seen as confirmation that since Odyssey's magic paintings warp, 64's do as well. Alright, on to Bowser's Fury. Despite the connections between this game and Sunshine being extremely obvious, down to even Shadow Mario's symbol reappearing for the first time since the GameCube, the magic paint of Bowser's Fury is technically a different substance as to what Junior used in Sunshine. Remember, there was goop. Well, this is splotchy goop. Completely different thing, trust me, this is important Mario lore. Regular goop also reappears though, as Bowser Jr. can use the paintbrush, again, now without EGAD symbol, to paint graffiti onto walls using presumably the same paint we saw before on Al Delfino. While the story of Bowser's Fury is incredibly thin and tells us basically nothing about what the origins of this goop are, we can at least conclude that it is once again the immense power of the magic paintbrush that has caused all this, as the ending implies Junior used it to paint his father's face and as a result caused Fury Bowser. Fortunately, this time around the splotchy goop is vulnerable to the cat shines, once again harkening back to Sunshine and the effect the shine sprites had, and Mario is able to save the day. So, just to quickly summarize, just to keep count. If we consider Bowser's Fury as part of 3D World, that then means that out of 7 3D Marios, a total of 4, meaning the majority of them, feature paint as a core part of their game design. That's just incredible. That makes it an undeniable common trope within the Super Mario series, and then we haven't even dabbled into the side games too much. Like, I mentioned the large number of spin-offs where Bowser Jr. has access to his magic paintbrush. There's also of course the entire Luigi's Mansion series, as while 2 and 3 don't focus on portraits as much as the first did, Mario being trapped inside one is literally the story of all 3 games. The later two do get rid of EGAT's paint-focused invention though, now using the Dark Light device to free Mario, a tool which doesn't really appear to have specific paint-like capabilities, despite being another EGAT production. And if you want even more paint, look no further than the most recent Paper Mario games. Color Splash revolves entirely around paint, it's even more pronounced than Sunshine was, honestly. This whole game's thing is paint, there's no if and or but about it. Down to Mario getting his own paint weapon now in the form of the paint hammer, which can bring color back to places that have lost it. The final boss once again is a Bowser covered in black paint, with concept art even showing a potential design that resembles the effect seen in Mario Sunshine when Mario enters a Rainbow M and the main collectible MacGuffin of the game is paint stars. This is essentially just Mario Paint the game, except, you know, not Mario Paint, but you get what I mean. While Origami King traded in paint for origami, quite literally actually, some of these mechanics are borderline identical, just using origami now, paint still plays a minor role in the story here, as Bowser Jr. loses his color during the Shangri Spa section of the game and gets it back by bathing in the special Rainbow Spa, which is essentially just paint. This is obviously more of a footnote in the long history Mario has with paint, but it's another Mario game to add to the list, which ends up being extremely long at this point. But it leaves one question. Why? Why are so many Mario games reliant or tied into paint in some way, shape or form? Well, if you're hoping I'll be able to give you a conclusive answer, I'm afraid I can't. No interviewer has ever asked Nintendo or even the developer about this trend, nor has Nintendo ever spoken about it themselves. So all I can do is speculate and theorize. And that has led to two theories that I would consider the most likely, and they could potentially both be true as well. The first is based on the role paint often plays within Mario games. That of a corruptor of sorts, a force that changes the environment for the worse. Not only does it bring back imagery of oil-infested waters without actually dealing with that quite serious material, it also works better as a child-friendly, whimsical corruptor compared to say acids or slime or dark energy or whatever other substance you can think of. It is easy to understand immediately what its effects are, it instantly feels out of place, and it can easily be conveyed as something unwanted without needing a story or dialogue, as Mario games obviously aren't too big on. So it serves a convenient plot purpose. Alternatively, to explain the less hazardous focus on paintings, like in Mario 64 for example, I think part of the idea could come from the simple fact that many of the people designing these games are artists in essence. They have a drawing background and usually got into the gaming industry not because they grew up loving games, but via manga or other artistic pursuits. From there, the step to using art as a core mechanic, like in Mario 64, is not a large one to make. Again, this is complete speculation on my part, but I think it is undeniable that paint has become a silent trope in the Mario series, with the sheer number of important appearances it has had over the course of the series. I'm curious what your theories are as to why this has come to be. And I want to know if you ever even noticed how much of Mario's games involve paint or paintings in one way or another. Share it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on all my future Mario content coming up. For now, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.